Hi everybody, welcome to my channel Homeopathy Super Sessions by Dr. Jarvis. Today we'll be doing Richard Hughes' Lecture 7, The Selection of a Similar Remedy. So, Richard Hughes in this lecture will tell you how to select a similar remedy or on what basis to select a similar remedy. So, the selection of a similar remedy, Chapter 7. Wherever it is applicable, let likes be treated by likes. So he always again tells you, he reminds you that wherever it is applicable, let us use less likes be treated by likes. We should have the knowledge of disease and the effects of drugs on the healthy person. So for this, we have to have the knowledge of disease and the knowledge of drug proving, that is the effects of drugs on a healthy person. All of this has been discovered in the previous lecture number 6. Hence, now let us focus our attention on how to select the similar remedy. It appeared to Hahnemann that this problem was quite simple. In the 4th edition Organon, he introduced a paragraph which recognized the necessity for wider consideration. In the 5th edition Organon, in episode number 5, as translated by Dr. Dudgeon, he has mentioned about the cause of acute and chronic diseases. Here you will observe two distinct points in the aphorism. The first one being the predisposing and the exciting cause of disease, which are be taken into account. So, in the 5th edition of Organon, in aphorism number 5, there are 2 points. Number 1, which will be seen distinctly. Number 1, it is the predisposing and the exciting cause, which have be taken into account. That means you take into account the predisposing and the exciting causes. Thus, while selecting a drug, we must take into consideration the temperament and disposition of the patient. So, while selecting a drug, not only you must take the predisposition or the exciting cause, but also you must take into consideration the temperament and the disposition of the patient. Example for rheumatic pains, we think of aconite or bryonia. If the exciting cause is exposure to dry, cold air, or rustox or dulcamara if the exposure to damp is there. So, the important point out here is that you have to know the predisposing and the exciting cause. The predisposing cause is the fundamental cause or the fundamental miasm which is obtained to the family history supported by the past history, and also the exciting causes of the diseases which are generally there in an acute disease. And it gives an example of aconite or bryonia, the exciting cause is exposed to dry cold air, and rustox or dulcamara if it is damp. Dr. Distel is of the opinion that if a definite exciting cause is discoverable in the symptoms of the drug, it indicates that symptoms have acted on a definite predisposing cause, making the system more susceptible to it. So therefore, he says that if a definite exciting cause is discoverable, it indicates that it has acted on a definite predisposing cause, making the system more susceptible to it. Example, dulcamara is homeopathic to catarrhal diarrhea, not because it is a purgative. The patient under its influence is more liable to have diarrhea induced in cold, damp weather. It thus acts deeper, not only by removing the symptoms, but also prevents the recurrence. This proves that the totality of symptom is of the prime importance. Hahnemann further explains the fundamental cause of the chronic disease, which is generally a chronic miasm. So now regarding the chronic diseases, the fundamental cause has to be taken into consideration. This is the chronic miasm. He found out that psora miasm was responsible for the majority of the chronic diseases. Therefore, an appropriate antisoric remedy would be of great use to treat the disease arising from psora. So therefore, you have to use the antisoric remedies in which the symptoms are arising from psora. The object of treatment was not only to find out the correct drug, but also to perceive the miasm responsible for it. So, your objection was, or your object of treatment was not only to find out the correct drug, but also to identify the correct miasm. Hahnemann states that besides the psoric miasm, there could be other miasms like syphilitic or psychotic miasm lurking in the background. So, Dr. Hahnemann said that no doubt psora is there, which forms the majority of all the diseases, or which is the majority of the cause of all the chronic diseases. But you also have to look out for other miasms or syphilitic, like syphilitic or the psychotic miasm. Hence, you have to classify the drugs into the miasmatic activity, which make it more easier to find the correct anti-miasmatic remedy rather than searching for drugs, which is a quite laborious process. So therefore, Hahnemann says, in order to simplify the process of prescribing, according to the miasmatic activity, the drugs has to be classified into antipsoric, antipsychotic, or antisyphilitic. And by doing so, it will be much easier for us to prescribe rather than searching the drugs, which are many in our materia medica, which is quite a laborious or a tiring process. So if you group the drugs, it becomes much more easier according to the miasm to select the right remedy. Thus, pathology would have to be taken into consideration to identify the miasmatic activity. Therefore, he says that in order to know what is the miasmatic activity, you have to know it through the pathology of the case. In the fifth edition of Organon, we find Hahnemann dividing miasmatic disease into two types, acute and chronic. In acute miasmatic disease, he names smallpox, measles, whooping cough, etc., episodes 73. And in chronic miasmatic disease, he says that there are three types, psoriasis, episodes, and syphilitic, episodes 78 to 80. Another class of specific disease recognized by Hahnemann was the epidemic fevers. It is a product of a single cause and hence will respond to the same specific remedy. So the cause of an epidemic disease is the same or the single cause. Therefore, the cause being the same or cause being single, all the persons will respond to that specific remedy. Now it is obtained by the study of several cases until symptom of totality of the epidemic is reached and a simillimum is found. So therefore, in order to find the correct simillimum, we have to study several cases so that the totality becomes complete, and that remedy which is selected is known as the genus Epidemicus. Aphorism number 73, 100, 102, 235 to 242. Thus, Hahnemann's concept of ideal homeopathy was to choose a remedy for a given natural disease which is capable of producing a very similar artificial disease that will be able to cure the most obstinate disorder. So therefore, Hahnemann's concept of ideal homeopathy was to match the natural disease with a very similar drug which can cause an artificial disease so that the most obstinate disorder can be cured. Later on, with reference to epidemic disease in Organon book, Hahnemann pointed out the difference what is generic and specific in disease. In an epidemic, the general symptoms like loss of appetite, sleepiness, etc., which are characteristic of all fevers, should be classified as generic. So, generic symptoms, in short, are the general symptoms of any disease. Those symptoms which are marked and special, which characterize the whole epidemic, are classified into specific. So, the specific ones are those which have PQRS symptoms or characteristic symptoms. Just to conclude, the similarity between disease and drug action should be generic, specific, and individual. So therefore, he says that the similarity between the disease and the drug action should be at the level of the generic similarity, the specific similarity, and the individual similarity. So in lecture 7, he's only described about generic and specific. In lecture 8, he'll describe about the individual similarity. So now let us say something about generic similarity. It means to find out the simile. Simile meaning the partially similar remedy. For this, the person must be ill, and the remedy must be able to produce the same symptoms on the healthy individual. If the person is more seriously ill, then the drug administered must be more potent to combat the disease phenomenon. And this is based on the broad generalities, which is the basis of homeopathy. So therefore, in order to find out the simile or the partial simillimum, we must take into account the symptoms of the drug and match it with the symptoms obtained on drug proving. And if the person is more seriously ill, then you have to have a more potent medicine in order to counteract the disease phenomena. And in order to counteract the disease phenomena, it should be based on broad generalities. So the generic similarity is that the remedy should be based on broad generalities. If you go further, the drug is capable of producing the same symptoms as that of the disease under consideration. So naturally, whatever drug we choose according to the law of similars, it should produce the same symptoms as the disease under consideration. To conclude, generic similarity is based on general symptoms of the disease. So for generic similarity, we go only on the general symptoms of the disease. Specific similarity, according to scientific sense, it implies the existence of species. So if we see according to the scientific point of view, the specific similarity means the existence of species. In natural history, it means the forms which are capable of reproducing. So these species in natural history are capable of reproducing. Thus, we have the infectious disease which originate from a common cause such as malarial fevers. Therefore, he says infectious diseases are there which originate from a common cause, for example, malarial fever. It also implies to have a different morbid process taking place in a particular organ, such as pneumonia, cirrhosis, liver, etc. So therefore, it says that it also has a target or a place of a particular organ which has been affected. For example, pneumonia, cirrhosis of liver, and so on and so forth. So many examples have been given. I've just stated 2 examples here. These are recognized as stable forms of diseases and they have their own set of symptoms. So they are the stable forms of diseases because they have their own set of symptoms. Pneumonia will have pneumonia symptoms. Cirrhosis of liver will have cirrhosis of, will have different sets of symptoms. It is caused due to interaction of host with the environmental factors. So naturally, there's an agent-host environment or the agent-host reaction which takes place as a result of which the interaction is there and the symptoms are there. So it deals with the characteristic symptoms. So specific similarity, it deals with the characteristic symptoms. The 5 necessary factors for specific similarity are, so then further for more continuous, he said, these are the 5 factors which should be necessary for specific similarity. They are seat of action, kind of action, importance to cause of disease, importance, character of pain and other sensation, and concomitants. So the first point, seat of action. The seat of disease implies an organ. So the seat of action meaning the location, the type, the system, the part affected. That is, in short, it implies the organ which is affected. The drug should have the same seat of action as that of the disease. So whatever drug under consideration is there, it should have the same seat of action as that of the disease. Totality symptoms are of prime importance. In case of the symptoms fail to guide us, then organopathy comes to our aid. So therefore, it says when symptoms are not sufficient or when symptoms are not characteristic enough, then we can use the organopathic type of prescription. It was used right since the time of Hippocrates' time, and it was introduced by Redmaker. Another way to prescribe can also be based on the 12 tissue remedies by Hughes. It was initiated by Dr. von Grauwald. He called it the nutrition remedies. Example, calcarea force and defect ossification of the cranium leading to chronic hydrocephalus. So another method is also by the method of the Hughes method by using the 12 tissue remedies, which is based on the theory of deficiency. Von Grauwald called it the nutrition remedies, example, calcarea force. So you could either go on for the totality of symptoms if the symptoms are characteristic, or if the symptoms are very few, you can use the organopathic method, or you can also use the method by using the 12 tissue remedy by Schussler and von Grauwald called it the nutritional remedies. The kind of action. It means more than the generic similarity. It takes into account the pathological process. They are the result of diathesis or general disease of which they are the outcome. So the pathology is the result of the diathesis of the general disease. So basically a diathesis is nothing but a state of a delicate balance between normal susceptibility and the disease condition or the general diseases, or it will just tell you something about diseases in general. It is not a simple task but requires symptomatic comparison, pathological inference, analogy, and clinical experience. So therefore it says that in order to find this out, it is not simple, but you have to require the expression of the disease, you have to compare it, you have to have the pathological inference, you have to use the doctrine of analogy, what's true for the part is true for the whole, and also clinical experience. The importance of cause of disease. It is a feature of specific similarity. It deals with the cause which modifies the disease. This can be a mental or a physical in origin. So the cause can be either mental or physical in origin, and which will naturally modifies the disease condition. Importance of character of pain and other sensation. We can compare the different types of pains, burning, tearing, gnawing, etc. But we may not be able to explain it. We may not be able to explain it, but it definitely characterizes suffering, which points out to the pathology and establishes the specific similarity of the drug which causes it. So therefore, it says the different types of pain, but we may not be able to explain why this pain is occurring, but we can definitely point out what pathology is taking place. It generally deals with characteristic symptoms. Concomitance, it is the coincidence of 2 or more marked symptoms in the pathogen of the drug and the phenomena of disease. So either 2 or more symptoms are seen in the pathogen of the drug when you prove the drug, or in the phenomena of disease. So it could be a mental phenomena, it could be a physical phenomena, and so on. Its value rests on the mathematical law of combination, which is technically called as permutation. So it depends upon the different permutations on what symptoms, 2 or more coincident symptoms, are seen in the case. Thus, 3 distinct symptoms of the case which are excited by medicines, there is a likelihood of its action on the same part. So therefore, it says that At least three distinctive or character symptoms must be present in the case which will affect the same part. And analogy plays an important part. Dr. Constantine Herring says if you have three legs to a stool, you may well sit upon it, but a four-legged chair is still better. That means he says that if you have a case where you have three characteristic symptoms, well, it is quite good. You could find out the remedy. But if you would have four character symptoms, it would be still better because it will be still easier to find out the remedies. This is known as the Constantine's Herring three-legged stool. Therefore, to sum it up, the main elements of specific similarity will include the action, the seat of action, that is organ or tissue affected, the kind of action, that is the diathesis, the positive modifications, the character of sensation, concomitant and sequence of symptoms. Dr. Drisdale said that more you can secure them, the better your prospects of reaching the pathological similarity. So another doctor, Dr. Drisdale, says that if you can secure them on all these points, it is easier to reach the pathological similarity. This should be your aim or your endeavors and the best hope for your patient. So this should always be your aim to find out the correct medicine, and this will be for the betterment of your patients. So that's all in this chapter. Thank you very much. Please do subscribe, share, like, comment, and